Welcome to Legal AF. I'm Mike Sachs with Court Accountability Action. And let's talk about what happened this past week with the foreign aid freezing. And the court order is telling this, the State Department of the Trump administration to unfreeze those $2 billion in foreign aid. The Trump administration, the State Department saying, no. And that going all over to the Supreme Court, where not 12 hours after President Trump backslapped Chief Justice Roberts to say, won't forget it. Now, 12 hours after that, the Supreme Court, by a 5-4 vote, said, yeah, you got to pay up, State Department, Trump, but maybe not quite yet. That happened this week, along with another court hearing in Judge Amir Ali's courtroom to discuss when and how and whether that foreign aid needs to be unfrozen pursuant to law and the Constitution and given out to those who have contracts saying that they should be getting this foreign aid that right now the Trump administration and the State Department are abrogating, both again illegally and unconstitutionally. All right, so let's zoom back to Wednesday, where the Supreme Court issues this order 5-4, days after, almost a week after Judge Ali mandated the State Department to pay those $2 billion in sums. The Supreme Court, Chief Justice Roberts by himself said, no, hold on, let's wait. We got to figure this out. Let's wait a few days. Well, those few days came and went, and a few more days came and went. And then, yes, the Supreme Court finally came out after people who were owed that aid, starving kids, sick kids, people trying to fight war and poverty, that they suffered during these days while they were waiting for money that was, again, lawfully and contractually owed to them. So while they were waiting for that, the Supreme Court twiddled its thumbs trying to figure out what was going on. And then, yes, on Wednesday morning, the Supreme Court said, you got to unfreeze this aid. But the opinion, I'm going to read it from it right here, said that given that the deadline in the challenged order has now passed, this was March 5th, and that deadline was 11:59 p.m. on February 26th. Given that that is now passed, again, they're not saying it's because the Supreme Court let it pass, or Chief Justice Roberts rather did. And in light of the ongoing preliminary injunction proceedings, which there's a hearing on Thursday, which I'm going to tell you about, the district court should clarify what obligations the government must fulfill to ensure compliance with the temporary restraining order with due regard for the feasibility of any compliance timelines. That was the Supreme Court, Chief Justice Roberts with Justice Amy Coney Barrett and the three liberals, Justice Sonia Sotomayor, Elena Kagan, and Ketanji Brown Jackson, who were seen to be dragged along for this, saying, Ali, be nicer to Trump, be nicer to the State Department, please, be nicer to Rubio. Well, that all happened. It went back to Ali, and Ali, in his preliminary injunction hearing on Thursday, over the course of 4 hours, was very mindful of this. But he went through also the constitutionality of the issue, went through the lawfulness of the issue, and dude still seems ready to throw the book at the Trump administration because they are clearly acting lawlessly and unconstitutionally in impounding these funds despite congressional authorization mandating it doing so. Again, if you remember, we've been talking about this here on Legal AF. This administration wants to impound funds, that is, freeze federal funding or cancel federal funding that the Congress, in its power of the purse, has mandated the executive spend. So this administration wants to hurt people to pursue an agenda that will not only just line Elon Musk's and Trump's rich friends' pockets, but also will rob power from the Congress, right now held by pliant Republicans who don't seem to care about the institutional power of the Congress, in order to aggrandize executive power and make themselves more like monarchs and autocrats. When if they want to hurt people, they can just go ask their allies in Congress, and the Congress, their Republicans are in control, will say, yes, Trump, whatever you want, and they'll say, here, you can freeze all that money. But instead of just going through the legal process, they want to have a constitutional confrontation and perhaps even trigger a constitutional crisis against the Supreme Court, or they expect the court to be in their pocket, to concentrate power in the executive at the expense of our constitutional republic, our democracy, and our pocketbooks, and our well-being, and our health and safety, and our rights. So this is one of these first salvos in this. This one's about foreign aid, but it's all tied into the impoundment issue. So Ali is likely, based on what he was saying at the hearing yesterday on Thursday, he's likely to say, Trump, you're acting illegally, unlawfully, and unconstitutionally. You must unfreeze these funds. But he has heard loud and clear what the Supreme Court said, or at least what the 5-justice majority said. And he was very consistent, saying, I want to make sure I'm dealing with the feasibility of this. I want to make sure that it's the remedies adequately tailored. So ultimately, what he came down to, what he ordered from the bench on Thursday was this. Trump administration must pay the plaintiff organizations their multi-millions, hundreds of millions, almost $2 billion in loans or in contractual obligations, not just loans, not just credit, but also in actual cash that's been contractually obligated to them that Trump's tried to cancel or delay. That must now be paid, not by February 26th, which was the original deadline, which the Trump administration says, but that's too short. You gave us 36 hours, but they had 2 weeks to do that from the start of his preliminary injunction. But in this mess of his own making, the Supreme Court in state's own making, the Supreme Court indulged it, and now Ali must indulge it. And he's now given them till Monday at 6 p.m., March 10th, to pay what's owed, to unfreeze the funds to the plaintiffs, and then as soon as possible to all the non-plaintiff parties that are also caught up in this funding freeze. So that's the deal now. That's considering the feasibility, considering what the obligations the government must fulfill to ensure compliance with the TRO. That's where we stand. But what's going to happen once Ali issues his preliminary injunction order, which will probably come down, if not by the end of this week on Friday, today, when I'm talking to you, or this weekend, and definitely by Monday? Well, what's going to happen is this. The Trump administration is going to say, no, we don't want to pay that. We don't think we should pay that. We have the constitutional right not to pay that. And the law doesn't require we do this. They're going to go to the D.C. Circuit. The D.C. Circuit's going to say, you got to pay. And it's going to go right back up to the Supreme Court. And then there'll be another fight over whether or not the Trump administration must pay. At least on this timeline, if not constitutionally. And on that regard, we can go to Justice Samuel Alito's dissent from Wednesday, where he was very mad about Ali saying that the Trump administration has to pay what it's already obligated to do under law and congressional diktat. He wrote, does a single district court judge who likely lacks jurisdiction have the unchecked power to compel the government of the United States to pay out and probably lose forever, again, money that it was already supposed to pay, $2 billion taxpayer dollars? The answer to that question should be an emphatic no, but a majority of this court apparently thinks otherwise. I am stunned. This coming from a man who plays Calvin ball with the law for whatever the Republican Party wants at the very moment. He was joined by Justice Thomas, Justice Gorsuch, and Justice Kavanaugh. Now, this was, again, really over Ali's compliance order, saying that giving the administration 36 hours to pay or else. So this wasn't about the various other legal issues involved, although at least these justices hinted that they might be on board with the broader issues. Although I think that Kavanaugh will probably join Barrett and Roberts to say that the administration cannot impound these funds constitutionally. But we'll see. It's going to get to the Supreme Court before we know it, and we'll be talking more about how the Supreme Court is either helping or hurting the American people in whether they help or side against President Trump's creeping autocracy. Now, let's remember, even if the Supreme Court gets in the way, even if the Supreme Court says, sorry, Trump, you can't do this one thing right now that you really want to do, it doesn't mean that the Supreme Court is not still a partner in amassing full partisan power under the executive and eliminating independent agencies like the NLRB and the FTC and the CFPB that are meant to help workers, everyday people, consumers from being screwed by those who would otherwise screw them if not having those looking out for them standing in the way. That's what this administration wants, and that's what this court also wants to do. So that's still going to happen. And let's not forget that we're only in this position of a potential constitutional crisis over confrontation over federal spending because this Supreme Court enabled, through the Citizens United decision, Elon Musk to spend his way into the Oval Office, ingratiate himself to Trump, help him get elected, and then become shadow president and get Doge going to slash all sorts of things that are also hurting workers, families, Americans. who just want to have an easy way to live freely and happily with their families without getting robbed to pay Trump's rich friends. So there's that. And then there's also, say, Trump versus the United States, where the Supreme Court, led by Chief Justice John Roberts, said Trump has immunity from criming while in office for trying to overturn the 2020 election. And that decision was a bit of a boost to Trump's election prospects. So you have a court that helped Trump get in power, helped Musk get in power. And if they say, no, Trump, you can't do this one thing, and Trump says, oh, I'm going to, well, those leopards eating each other's faces will hurt the rest of us. So we must stay vigilant. We must pay attention. We must see what's going on in the courts, in our country, to understand how we ourselves, the people, must save ourselves and this country from whatever Trump 2.0 is trying to make and impose upon all of us. So keep watching us here at Legal AF as we keep you apprised of what's going on so that our democracy can survive and be healthier and happier and stronger than ever before coming out of this mess. Thanks for watching. Hit that subscribe button. We're Legal AF. I'm Mike Sachs with Court Accountability Action.
In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories at the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.